these are not communities where there are huge populations of children. These are communities that are huge populations of retirees, and your challenge is that there are new retirees every year who have moved into the area, many of whom were United Methodists somewhere else, and so it's taken a shift in thinking, to truly welcome those folks in and help them be a part of things.
Hello, this is Pastor Terry Goodman, and I want to welcome you to the Wesleyan Connection. This podcast is primarily for the clergy and laity of the Holston Annual Conference. Join with me now as I take a look around the Connection and share some of the things happening in the churches of our annual conference. Well, it's once again time for Monday Morning with a DS. I'm continuing my interview this week with Charles Maynard. If you remember last week, I split it up so that I could have a very special broadcast during appointment week when Charles talked about the appointment-making process as he has sort of gone through it over the 6 years he's been a DS. Today I'm going to switch gears and talk about, well, I'm not doing the talking. Charles is doing the talking. He's going to talk about the Maryville District, and he's going to talk about some specific ministries. We'll talk about the Hispanic Ministries. We'll talk about the fire in Gatlinburg. We'll talk about how some churches are growing in a way that perhaps we wouldn't anticipate growth coming. And we're also going to talk about a Sudanese congregation that I'd read about but had never really heard very much about. So I hope you enjoy this interview today as you sort of get a picture of the Maryville District in big chunks, maybe an overview kind of picture of what the Maryville District is all about. So enjoy, and thanks for listening, and come back next week for another interview. Haven't decided which DS I'll put up then, but there'll be another one up next Monday at 8 o'clock. But right now, enjoy this conversation with Charles Maynard. I'm here this afternoon with Charles Maynard. What's your official title? What is the question I've been putting it to the other folks is, what is the cog that you are in the greater cog work of the annual conference? How do you make the conference turn and work?
I am the District Superintendent of the Maryville District, and so I work with 63 churches in 4 counties.
Okay. When you think about which 4 counties, you're talking about Maryville and Sevier County? And
Sevier County, Blount County,
yes.
Which is Maryville, Loudoun County, most of Loudoun County. Oddly enough, Lenoir City is in Oak Ridge District, and then
I remember that from my days in Oak Ridge.
Monroe County. So those 4, and then we have 2 churches in Knox County and 1 church in Roane County. So we have little places dispersal. that.
When you think of the counties that you've mentioned, what are some of the characteristics? Are you where I'm at in Big Stone up in Wise County? We are in a severe economic downturn. How would you describe the general region that your district covers?
Well, you think my district is the Smokies, the mountains of East Tennessee, and so from Monroe County all the way up through Sevier County, and so our economy, a piece of our economy, is tourism.
Okay,
and so Gatlinburg, Pigeon Forge, Townsend, even Tellico Plains has a tourist economy to some extent that's based in the National Forest, where people go fish and see national forest land. You can hunt, and there are other kinds of.
We used to have a cabin down
tourism
in the Tellico Mountains. Back then, I wouldn't have thought of it as tourism.
Well, but you have to think, you didn't actually live there the whole time. So there's that vacation population, I guess you'd say. Mm-hmm. So I think that's an interesting part of what this district has.
Does that create special challenges or opportunities for the churches of this district?
Oh, it creates both challenges and opportunities. One of the opportunities you have is you've got people who come who want to worship while they're away from home. The challenge is they're away from home, and so you see them this Sunday, and then you may never see them again. I'll give you an example. Campground has really worked on their ministry, and when I came on the district 6 years ago, their average attendance was low 20s. They're around 60 now, but a good 50% of those are tourists. And they'll have, on Christmas Eve, they'll have 100 people packed in that sanctuary on Christmas Eve, and most of them will be tourists. So they've really worked at being better at welcoming people, but not just like, oh yeah, we're glad you're here. Not that kind of a welcome, but really, oh, well, where do you live? And oh, we've had somebody from Texas, and kind of really working at making a visitor to the area as opposed to a visitor to church. I think before there was a sense, and this is true in some other churches, there was a sense of, oh, well, if you're just visiting the area, we're not really interested in you. And I think
they can sense that too.
Yes. And I think I've seen that. I've seen it change at Campground. I've seen it change at Gatlinburg, Where's Valley. But then also the other opportunity and challenge is that a lot of our growth in those particular areas is with retirees. So the challenge we had to get over was that myth that the way a church grows is with children and youth. And
I've always heard I heard someone comment on that. They talk about, we need to have more children and more youth. And he says, I've never heard anybody say, let's grow our church with old people.
Yeah, exactly. and see, so you look at Where's Valley, for instance, or Gatlinburg is another good example. These are not communities where there are huge populations of children. These are communities that are huge populations of retirees. And your challenge is that there are new retirees every year who have moved into the area, many of whom were United Methodists somewhere else. And so it's taken a shift in thinking, to truly welcome those folks in and help them be a part of things, so that now, we've got this thrive. Whereas Valley used to be 1 point of a 4-point charge, now it's a full-time station church on its own, and it's thriving, but there are hardly any children there.
Okay.
So and Campground is yet another example. Yes, they're good at welcoming tourists, but they've been great at welcoming retirees. Tuckaleechee, which is just up the road from Campground, but still in Townsend. Gatlinburg. Now the challenge at Gatlinburg has been the fire.
What has been our response to that?
Well, the difficulty is that somebody asked me today. I was at a meeting this morning, and somebody says, how many churches did we lose in the fire? Well, the response that I've been giving is, well, we didn't lose any buildings, but we may have lost a couple of congregations. And did that many people die? No, not in those congregations. Although we did have a few people in congregations who were killed. But it's that if you're 78 years old and your house burns down and you lost everything and you retired here, are you really going to rebuild at 78? Or you're going to have to move closer to your kids in the next year or two anyway. So the fire's been the catalyst for people to say, okay, we're done. We're going to move away. And so we're struggling in a couple of places to have enough people. So in other words, we may have the building but not have the congregation anymore. Does that make sense?
Makes
now that's maybe a little too extreme. It's just I don't think we're going to. I think we will continue to have a church in Gatlinburg. I think we'll continue to have a church in Pittman Center. I think that we're going to have to look at different models of how we do that.
A re-examination of purpose, maybe.
Well, yeah, and how do we do that, and how do we fund that, and do the things that we need to do, because Gatlinburg's been changing anyway, the type of population that it is, and so I think the fire just accelerated that, Now, part of our response is, okay, then how do we help those congregations? How do we help those communities? And we're really working on that, what that looks like. One of the other things you're going to ask me that I'm going to answer.
Yes. What question, Greg Carnack, would be the answer to?
Well, I think we have 3 very viable Hispanic congregations, 2 in Sevier County, 1 in Blount County. We're about to do a restart. We had one in right where Loudoun and Monroe County come together, kind of between Sweetwater, Madisonville, and Loudoun. Almost in that middle of that triangle is a congregation that we started. It didn't go too well. We're about to do a restart there, so that'll be four sites. The Sevierville Church, their average attendance, weekly attendance is about 320, 325. So it's a very strong, big congregation. The one here in Maryville continues to grow and develop. The Gatlinburg congregation, obviously the fire has been a challenge because many of the people who lost their dwellings did not own them, but rented, and that certainly was what Hispanic folks in Gatlinburg were. So we're struggling with that, but still, that congregation's still going.
I'm trying to formulate a question here, and I hope to say it in a way that makes sense and not offensive to anyone. To have a community, a Spanish community, speaking community like that, what brings that community to this region? How did East Tennessee become a place where you have a 325 member Spanish-speaking church?
Tourism.
Okay.
Because people have to make up beds and bus tables, and those are not
jobs that
other people are looking for, and yet the industry requires it.
So it's not a transient. I guess in my mind I was thinking farm labor.
No,
it's not that.
No.
It's not a transient. This is a population that remains because they have the employment opportunities year round.
Right.
Okay. I hope that wasn't an impolite
but
question.
But why here? I mean, that's a good question. Now, in Monroe County, the answer is a little different. There is a Hispanic population there, and it is a little more agrarian, a little more seasonal, a little more transient, but not completely. A lot of farm work has to be done all year round, and so some of those folks have been here for years.
Okay.
And there's an interesting challenge in the Hispanic church, and that is that all of the youth are bilingual, and so they don't necessarily want the entire service in Spanish.
Wouldn't have thought of that.
And so the younger pressure on their elders, who by the way are not that old, but is, well, why can't we worship in both languages? It's not a sense of we want to worship in English. It's that, we love both languages. Why can't we worship God in both? And so it's just one of those challenges that we're having to kind of think about and work through. The other interesting congregation we have here is that we have a group of South Sudanese refugees.
Okay, that's at Green Meadow.
Green Meadow, and Spring of Living Water is the name of that congregation, and they worship in Arabic.
Okay.
And so now again, nearly everybody in the room is bilingual. So, for instance, the night I preached there a few months ago, I said to the pastor, well, are you going to translate for me? He goes, we don't need to translate for you. Everybody will understand what you have to say. And they did. There wasn't a language problem because everybody works in English,
Mm-hmm.
And so I asked the group, at one point, I said, so if everybody understands English, why do you worship in Arabic? And they said, it's the language of our heart. Mm-hmm. And that's what we want to offer to God. And that makes perfect sense. You think, well, of course. But it's presented some interesting challenges. The pastor went through local pastors licensing school and then says, okay, where's my book of worship in Arabic?
I bet there aren't too many of those floating around.
We've had to kind of struggle with getting some resources that they can use, and some we're even getting some help to translate the communion service, the baptism service, the just things that we don't even think about.
Wow.
But it's been exciting. It's been
imagine.
fun to be involved in that.
Okay, you've sort of given me sort of a micro view of some specific situations. Right. Give me a macro view. What are some of the broader ministries? Are you able as a district to engage in a ministry that sort of stretches across a couple of counties, or your ministry is more locally focused?
Well, sometimes crossing counties is a little more difficult. Not impossible, but a little more. We've tried to have an emphasis on homelessness lately, but for instance, there's a Blount County habitat. There is no habitat presence in Sevier County, and they have a group called Live It. So instead of saying to the Sevier County churches, you need to support the Blount County habitat bill that we did as a district.
I led one of those in Abingdon years ago.
Well, see, so what we did was we said to the churches, you need to find the homeless thing that's going on in your neck of the woods, and that's the thing we're all going to work on. So we've had an emphasis, but we've done it a little more locally.
Okay.
And so you think of Knoxville District, which is not even all of Knox County. See, but most of all of their churches are located in one county and are much closer together. So it's easier to have, I say easier, Nathan might disagree, but it's different.
I'll ask him one day.
Well, yeah, but maybe the way to say it is it's different than having this many churches spread out over 4 counties and pieces of 2 others, Mm-hmm. And so when you want to engage in school systems, in Blount County alone, there are 3 school systems: the county, Maryville City, and Alcoa City. So even that is a little bit of a challenge if you're going to engage in local schools, because you can't say, oh, well, here's who you call. Well, it depends on where you are as to who you call. And so we've been trying to do some of that. I think the conference's emphasis with children in poverty, our folks have really gotten into that. And our folks really, really are connected to Ishe and Asu, and the buckets are a big deal in this district.
Okay. And I think I heard Tom Hancock report today that the buckets are they the same as last year? Districts will do the same one they did last year. So the missions team is moving forward. So
well, yeah, believe me, in this district, there's some churches that have been collecting stuff for their buckets since Thanksgiving, and they'll be ready when we start collecting. First year I was here, I think we had around 930, and last year we had 1,400.
How many years have you been at the Maryville District?
6.
6. Okay.
It just feels like 20.
Just feels like 20.
Only 6.
You only look like it's been 30. This is Pastor Goodman. Thanks for listening to this edition of the Wesleyan Connection. Be sure to check back often for more podcasts.